Hello there, and happy Friday. This is our daily tarot. We have 5 cards today. The opening card that we have is the Six of Swords. The challenge that we are facing today is the Death card. Dun dun dun. The way we're going to get through the challenge is the Judgment card. And then the overall outcome that we have for today showed up as the Two of Wands, clarified by the Five of Cups in reverse. So some interesting energies are coming onto the table today. And first I want to speak about this opening card. We have the Six of Swords. So we see there's these 3 people that are in this boat that is going across this body of water. And there's 6 swords in the boat. So it brings up, how do we position ourselves in the mental arena to transverse some kind of emotional situation, right? Because they're traveling over this body of water, which looks to be a little bit turbulent, and they're going to a landmass across the body of water. So how do we transverse? How do we overcome some kind of situation that we know that we're going to have to go through? A lot of the times it depends on how we mentally position ourselves, right? And when we're facing something that we perceive as being something that could be turbulent, or that's like creating choppy water, right? It's not a smooth flowing thing. And the mind has to position itself to figure out, like, how do I adjust to this, or how do I get out of this choppy experience? And the message in this card is having some kind of smooth passage away from a turbulent situation. So I just want to put that on the table as like the beginning note, right? As like the first stone into the pool to create a ripple of understanding, because so many times we consider choppy waters as like the gods are bringing this horrible fate on me, when really it's bringing this up to say, hey, there's a different place for you, and you have to move from this place to experience flow. So that's our opening energy for the day. The challenge that we have showing up is a major arcana, right? So it's speaking of some life lesson that we don't get choice over. And the card that showed up in this area is the Death card. Now, death is a really strong word, especially if you've ever experienced the loss of someone, or a pet, or some being close to you dying, right? Death is a really powerful word. And yet we have to consider that this is speaking of something that needs to pass away so that it can be born into a new light, into a new experience. Similar to, like the acorn having to die as an acorn to become the oak tree, or the caterpillar having to die as a caterpillar in order to become the butterfly, right? There's this process that's going on that is calling for us to, in a lot of ways, pull ourselves inward and kind of die to the outer world so that something new can grow. And this is a challenge, because how we've identified ourselves, or how the world has identified ourselves, has some kind of permanence, right? Like, who as me, as Katie Delaney, is something, right? Is like a certain image or a certain picture. But that Katie Delaney that is likely about to go through some kind of huge process that's going to bring me into a different chapter of myself. And I say this, kind of tongue in cheek, but also in a bit of seriousness, because we are getting ready to go into an eclipse season on this axis of Scorpio and Taurus, which this kind of points to. And the first note of that is like the day before my birthday. I was born on the 26th of October, and when I was born, the sun was at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So, interestingly enough, this eclipse that we are about to go through is right at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So, it's right on top of my sun. So, there is this uh, noise on the line as far as my own life goes, in this energetic of almost expectation. And there's this rebirthing process that's happening in my own sense of self. And if you have a, placement of a planet in one of the fixed signs like Scorpio or Taurus or Leo or Aquarius, you're likely going to be impacted by this in a very big way. If you have, a planetary body in a water sign, you could be experiencing some kind of help through this because it's in a trine relationship or, 120 degrees. So it can lend this energetic of ease, whereas a square, right, 90-degree relationships can create some friction. But friction, can create warmth. Friction can create things that weren't there without the friction, right? If these two things don't come into contact, then nothing can happen, right? If they stay in their own corners, so to speak. So there is this energetic of us being called to the challenge and being almost forced to rise up to the challenge based on this energetic of this eclipse that's happening right now. And it's putting in front of us what aspects of our own being or our own life or our own habits, depending, of course, where Scorpio sits in your natal chart, which parts of your life are asking to be transformed. And so that is a powerful time for all of us. Now, as far as how do we get through the challenge, we have another major arcana. We have the Judgment card. It showed up reversed, which is interesting because Pluto, which is what this card represents astrologically, has been in this place of retrograde since the last day of April. So since May, pretty much, Pluto has been in this place of like asking us to review, asking us to look at what it is that we really do have to transform. And, in this time period, it's likely that you've heard the call of some sort, right? Because the Judgment card are people who are going through this rebirthing process. They're coming out of this place of darkness and rising up to the challenge. And when we consider this card coming in as reversed, it's like the trumpets are playing and they're calling you and you just like keep hitting the fucking snooze button, right? Like maybe in a little while, maybe in a little while, maybe in a little while. But consider what's interesting to me is that here we are getting ready to go into the Scorpio season. Scorpio is governed by Pluto and Mars. Pluto is getting ready to come out of retrograde, right? Like in the next couple of days. And Mars is getting ready to go into retrograde. So there's something that's really stirring the currents inside of us as far as like, are you going to engage with this thing that's calling you to the table? Because this is a life-shifting opportunity. And right now we have Mars up in this area of Gemini, and it's really asking us to look at things in a new way and consider what it is that does engage us. So, I think it's important for us to not only stop hitting the snooze button, but to create some kind of routine for us to make purposeful strides in the direction that we want to go and that we feel called to go. Now, the ultimate outcome that we have for today, right? We have the Two of Wands, which is all about someone who has to complete something in order for them to have the energy to move forward into where they feel like they're called to go. It's like our will is tied in these two different places. One of them is free and looking forward, but one of them is tied to the past, quite literally. So, this eclipse season could be asking you to bring out your own sword of clarity so that you can see where you get caught up and where you put your energy and efforts. Now, the clarifying card, which I think is so poignant, is the reversed Five of Cups. So the Five of Cups is all about loss and renewal. Like if you have these 5 cups, you know, 3 of them are like, this is happiness, this is pleasure, this is the ideal situation, you know, and yet they're turned over, right? They're spilt. And so we see that this person is looking at them in this way that they can't even see these 2 cups that are behind them. And this card is really poignant for me, particularly. And there's a reason why I drew this tree in the background with the leaves that are falling to the ground, because it's important for us to realize that being fixated on things that didn't work out actually steals our energy and time from putting that effort towards something that is willing to grow. And when we see that this person is kind of fixated in this area of loss, it's like staying in the season of fall all the time, you know? And of course, I love the fall season because of the colors and the different shifts of energies and things. But consider that a tree lets go of its leaves in a certain season, right? After it's grown and taken in all of the nourishment from the year, it has to let go of that so that it can pull itself inward and have the energy to grow the next year. So when we get fixated on things that didn't work out or emotional periods of loss, as much as, you know, part of us feels like we're, you know, honoring that experience, in a lot of ways we are missing the mark. We're missing out on this precious time that we have every single day to put our energy and effort towards something. And if you're looking at that cup that's spilt over indefinitely, well, then you'll never be able to see that there are these 2 cups behind you that are waiting to be actualized and realized the moment you bring them into your hand. So we are in this time of review. We're in this really powerful time of shifting changes that you may not get any control over. But I argue that if you do want to stay in the game with the situation that you're in, that it's really important that you speak up rather than letting people's minds run away with them, because it's only us individually that can lend words to our experience. And that's part of why we're here, right? In this world, is to communicate and be in experience and community with others. So we are in motion. We are, you know, transversing these choppy waters. But part of that ability comes down to where we put our focus and where we put our energy and our effort. And if something is perhaps being taken out of your life during this time, or some big shift and change is happening, I ask you to turn around and look at the 2 cups that are sitting there waiting for you to pour your energy into them, because that's likely where the next chapter is going to begin. I send you all a good wish and a lot of love out there, wherever you are in the world. If you feel called to get a reading, feel free to reach out. And of course, I sincerely appreciate the people who are able to make a donation to my daily readings, because they help me keep them going. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.